The subcommittee is meeting today to hear testimony on 6 bills: H.R. 630, H.R. 1240, H.R. 1722, H.R. 2461, H.R. 2839, and H.R. 3371. Under Committee Rule 4F, any oral opening statements at hearings are limited to the chairman and the ranking minority member. I therefore ask unanimous consent that all other members' opening statements be made part of the hearing record if they are submitted in accordance with Committee Rule 3.0. Without objection, so ordered. I ask unanimous consent that the gentlewoman from Oregon, Ms. Hull, and Ms. Salinas, the gentleman from South Dakota, Mr. Johnson, the gentleman from Iowa, Mr. Feenstra, and the gentleman from Arizona, Mr. Crane, be allowed to sit and participate in today's hearing. Without objection, so ordered. I will now recognize myself for an opening statement. Today, the subcommittee is meeting to consider 6 bills. H.R. 630, the Urban Indian Health Act, would require all agencies within the Department of Health and Human Services, or HHS, to establish an urban organization, or UIO, and confer policy. Currently, only the Indian Health Service is required to confer with UIOs, while other agencies of HHS only are required to consult with the tribes. Second, H.R. 1240, the Winnebago Land Transfer Act of 2023, would provide for the administrative transfer of jurisdiction of approximately 1,600 acres of land in Iowa on the Nebraskan border from the Army Corps of Engineers to the Bureau of Indian Affairs to be held in trust for the Winnebago Tribe of Nebraska. This would return land to the tribe that was seized by the Army Corps of Engineers in the 1970s for a recreation project that was never completed. Third, H.R. 1722, the Grand Ronde Reservation Act Amendment of 2023, would amend the Grand Ronde Reservation Act to reflect that the Grand Ronde tribe's extinguishment of land claims against the United States only applies to an 84-acre parcel of land known as the Thompson Strip. The bill also includes a gaming prohibition on any future land that the tribe may be awarded as part of a land claim settlement and prohibits the use of money received as part of a land claim settlement to purchase land for gaming purposes. Fourth, H.R. 2461, the San Juan Southern Paiute Tribal Homelands Act, would establish an approximate 5,400-acre reservation for the San Juan Southern Paiute Tribe from lands that are currently a part of the Navajo Nation's reservation in Arizona. The San Juan Southern Paiute Tribe has historically lived in southern Utah and northern Arizona and shared lands with the Navajo Nation, the Hopi Tribe, and other tribes that lived and traversed the area. However, their traditional homelands were added to the Navajo Reservation in 1922 and 1934. The San Juan Southern Paiute Tribe have continued to live on their traditional homeland since then, and they are the only federally recognized tribe in Arizona to not have a land base. After litigation was instigated regarding land between the tribes in 2000, both the San Juan Southern Paiute Tribe and Navajo Nation signed a treaty that resolved this land issue, designating land for a reservation for the San Juan Southern Paiute Tribe, clarifying the sovereign authority of both tribes and resolving other mutual concerns. Fifth, H.R. 2839 would amend the Siletz Reservation Act to allow the Confederated Tribes of Siletz Indians and the state of Oregon mutually to amend or replace the current consent decree governing the tribe's hunting, fishing, trapping, and animal gathering rights. The Siletz tribe is the only Oregon tribe that has a judicially mandated consent decree governing their hunting and fishing rights for their traditional areas, unlike other treaty tribes. This legislation would allow for a process by which the state of Oregon and the Siletz to negotiate and amend or replace the current agreement. And last on our agenda, H.R. 3371, the Wounded Knee Memorial and Sacred Site Act, would place approximately 40 acres of fee land within the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation into restricted fee status jointly for the Ogallala Sioux Tribe and the Cheyenne River Sioux Tribe. The land would be held in memorial as a sacred site for the Indian people killed in the 1890 Wounded Knee Massacre. I'm hopeful we can all work together to continue to ensure the legislation considered today gains support, and moves through the legislative process. I thank the witnesses for being here today and look forward to your testimony. Mr. Newland, would like to visit with you about H.R. 1240. And the question is, has the department had any communication with the Army Corps of Engineers about this land being returned to the Winnebago tribe? And are you aware of the Army Corps position on this bill?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have not spoken myself directly with anyone from the Corps about this legislation.
So right now, you don't know what their position is?
I have not heard anything to the contrary from our position, but no, I haven't confirmed that.
Okay. With regard to 1722, would the gaming prohibition language included in H.R. 1722 prevent the Grand Ronde tribe from being able to conduct gaming on land received in any further land settlement or on land purchased from proceeds of a land settlement?
Yes.
And then in terms of 1722, my understanding is that it clarifies that Grand Ronde would only have extinguished their land claims for the 84 acres of land, which is referred to as the Thompson Strip. Is the current language that extinguishes all Grand Ronde land claims unique to them, or does that language exist in other Indian laws reestablishing reservations or federal recognition? In other words, are there any other federally recognized tribes prevented from filing land claims against the United States?
Thank you, Madam Chair. There are a number of statutes that have extinguished tribal land claims with finality in other places. I can't speak to how many of them use the same type of language or are address tribes similarly situated to Grand Ronde. I'll stop there.
Okay, thank you for that. Ms. Egorin, outside of the IHS, does the department or its agencies ever consult or confer or communicate with urban Indian organizations on HHS's ability to deliver health care to American Indians and Alaska Natives?
Thank you for that question. Yes, the other divisions at HHS do consult and work with UIOs as they would with other grantees, including CMS's requirement that for state planning amendments, waivers, and other modifications to state Medicaid programs, the conversations with UIOs and tribal members occur.
Okay. How can all of the HHS improve its communication with urban Indian organizations even without a required confer policy? How could we improve that type of communication?
HHS looks forward to improving communication with tribal members, but currently works through IHS in a coordination role to make sure that we are looking across silos that often happen across divisions and have a holistic view. There's also regular interactions and communication and training that does occur for grantees across our divisions.
Do you have other ideas of changes that could be made in that regard to improve the communication and the ability to provide services to our urban Indian organizations?
We are always looking for ways to improve access and to improve communication. And we look forward to working with Congress for policy changes. Our teams across divisions continue to look for ways to make access for information about grants and about resources more accessible, whether that's improving access to grant trainings, whether that's information on our website or in terms of other consultation.
The final paragraph of your written statement, you said, "We look forward to continuing our work with Congress on this bill and welcome the opportunity to provide technical assistance as requested by the committee or its members." Are you aware of any changes that you would like to see to this bill, or are you just simply stating that you are interested in helping us to make sure we can move this bill forward?
The Office of the Assistant Secretary of Legislation looks forward to working with Congress to make sure that the policy intent of the committee and of members is fulfilled in the legislative language. Okay. So working with you.
All right. I want to thank all of the witnesses for your testimony. It's very moving, very important to have all of you here today. I'm going to start recognizing the members for their questions, and I'm going to start with me. I think one of the things that's interesting about the bills that are before us is that there is a common theme, although they're very disparate in terms of the specific issues that they're addressing. And the common theme for me, as I've listened to the testimony and read through the information in preparation for today, is that they're about fixing past mistakes. They are about righting past wrongs. They're about allowing for healing, and they're about honoring those who have suffered. But it's also recognizing the United States' responsibilities, obligations, and in some cases, culpability. These bills also seem to expose the failure of a government that can take literally decades to correct these types of things. And I'm going to say it again, we must do better for our tribal members, for our citizens, and for our country. And I know that this committee and the committee members are committed to that. The members in the House of Representatives that I have talked to are committed to fixing these things and addressing these things, and not just with these 6 bills, but with other issues that need to be addressed as well. I'm going to begin my questioning with Victoria Kitchian. In your testimony, you note that the legislation at issue enjoys bipartisan co-sponsors and support for the legislation from the Department of Interior. Are you aware of anyone or any particular agency that may oppose this legislation?
Thank you for the question. No, the Winnebago tribe took great effort to ensure that all stakeholders from the local county, from the local representatives, from the fishers and the hunters, and we wanted to ensure that we covered all those that had an interest or care for that land. And we have met no opposition, and in fact, we're very thankful for the Army Corps working with the Iowa DNR to anticipate this change, and that they have language in their licensing that this land would be returned.
Well, thank you, and that was going to be my next question, is what the position the Corps of Engineers has taken, but I believe that you just answered that they are in support of this legislation as well. Wonderful. In your testimony, you stated that the Winnebago tribe would not make many changes to the current conservation measures in place for these lands, and that the Winnebago Wildlife and Parks Department would have jurisdiction similar to what is exercised on other Winnebago lands. Could you please further expand on what these lands would be used for and the recreational and conservation activities that your tribe will be focusing on?
Certainly. The tribe has a robust Wildlife and Parks Department that oversees 10,000 acres, and they create zones. So they'll create a zone for the Iowa land and will administer it in the same way that we do on the Nebraska side. And they will continue to have hunting, fishing, and recreation there, as well as, I guess in our opinion, we're going to do a better job than the Iowa DNR did in taking care of this land. And I just want to assure you that the indigenous knowledge and the caretaking of the land is something that is within us and a part of us.
Well, I have every expectation that that is true. And I bet that it's beautiful. I bet those lands are very beautiful. So this is a good opportunity, again, to fix a past wrong. And so I'm glad that you're here today. Mr. Langley, I would like to turn to you. Would you please further elaborate on your written testimony about the possible title issues that were mentioned? In other words, how many other surveys and title errors have been found by tribal staff, and have any of those been resolved?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I am not aware of any that have been found, but it's very likely that there will be. Most of the lands are timber, which all the resulting valleys and canyons, all of that, make it likely that there will be another error. Our original reservation was 69,000 acres, so it is very likely that there are others that we just aren't aware of.
And is Grand Ronde aware of any specific land claims that will be sought at this time if the legislation is enacted?
No, we are not.
Okay. Is the state of Oregon supportive of this legislation, and do you have either written or stated support from the state in that regard?
Thank you. And yes, it is. It's one of those things where both Democrats and Republicans agree on this. We're very proud of that, and I think it's the simplicity of this issue, I think, speaks to it.
Okay, well, I grew up on a ranch, and I understand what all of you say when you talk about the importance of the land in terms of not only your past, but your future and your identity. So again, I appreciate the representatives and the various Congress members who are willing to take up these issues and address them for you. And with that, I am going to, actually, I'll ask another question, and this to Mr. Lane. You mentioned in your testimony that Oregon is supportive of the legislation and that both your tribe and the state have taken first steps to renegotiate the consent decree. Can you further explain how these discussions or negotiations are taking place and what you think the path forward is?
Thank you for this question. We started 2 years ago negotiating with the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife. And it's been an ongoing conversation. Awkward at first, but slowly making progress. And we have reached common ground, and even to the point where ODF and W, in our agreement, we pledged to each other to help work together to enhance the wildlife situation in Oregon. We're faced with so many different things, from climate change to low runs in fish and salmon and steelhead. And some of them are even international that will have to be handled by this body because of the acidification of the Pacific. But anyway, we have an agreement now in principle, and it will be on the ODF and W docket for the 16th of June for approval between the tribe and the state.